Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of North Kawartha Council on December 2nd. It's lovely, a snowy winter's day up here in North Kawartha. It's feeling very Christmassy out there today. And I would like to remind folks, because we have a number of people that are joining us online, as well as any folks that are joining us here in real time here in the chambers. Our meetings are recorded and they are uploaded to our YouTube channel. So just want people to be aware and be advised, any comments, any opinions that are expressed will be recorded and available for members of the public to hear. And before we begin, council would like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe. In particular, our neighbors from Kawartha Anishinaabe and Curve Lake First Nation. We recognize and honor the original people of this place we call North Kawartha. As duly elected representatives, we fostered this Indigenous practice of acknowledgement to foster respectful deliberations, thoughtful collaboration, and wise decision-making in our service to this community. Okay, and with that, I would ask, does any member of council have a pecuniary interest with any of the matters before us today? Seeing none, we'll move on. And adoption of the agenda. There are a couple of addendums. Connie, if you would like to identify those, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We do have some addendum items. The first one is a validation of title application for B-2-25. Also, there was an updated PowerPoint presentation provided by Councillor McClellan that's been included. And at the Committee of Adjustment meeting this morning, Mr. Wanup requested consideration of council to waive the fee for minor variance application A-2025.
Okay, all right. Can I have a motion then to approve the amended agenda? Moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Colin. All those in favor? That is approved. All right. Mute, hit the mute. Okay, so now where are we going to? So we don't have any statutory public meetings, but I am wondering, we have our planner here and there's a couple of items on there. Can we, with council's permission, can we just pull those items ahead so Ms. Laura can deal with them now? Okay, perfect. So are you for the amendment or the amendment, whatever was the added, the planning that you see that? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, perfect. I've got the wrong agenda open on my computer, so I got to open the right one. Here we go. There we go. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, whenever. Okay. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you and good morning, council. This application is V-225. This is a validation of title application, and it falls under the consent umbrella. So this is to validate the title of the properties, and these types of applications are somewhat rare. They occur typically when there is an estate involved or the death of a family member when properties were transferred. I'll just give a little bit of information. The property address is 674 County Road 504, roll number 15360100200122602, part lot C and D, concession 4. The area is 9.3 hectares. It's zoned rural and environmental constraint. When looking at the verification of or the validation of title, essentially my role is to ensure that that property meets the zoning requirements. There's nothing that needs a variance. It fits with the official plan, that type of thing. So that's exclusively what I'm looking at. This property meets everything. There are no concerns. We don't need a rezoning. We don't need conditions attached to it or anything like that. So when I send my municipal appraisal form to the county, it would be just as straightforward that council supports the approval.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments on that for Laura? If not, there is the recommendation that we support the validation of title application. Moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Jim Whalen. All those in favor? And that's approved.
Thank you.
And then the other item is, you want to train us.
I do.
We need some training.
I can see why.
You know why.
Council orientation, so.
Yes, so this is just a very quick report asking, from time to time, things change with the Planning Act, with new legislation that is constantly coming out of our provincial government, and updates to the way things are done. So this is just a way to touch base and learn how I'm doing my planning for the township, and we can talk about that, and we can talk about the changes that are coming up, the changes that have happened, and give some really good examples of how councils have adapted to the changes.
Okay, perfect. So, the recommendation is that we dedicate time during our closed session, for, the schedule on December 16th to receive training and updates on planning.
So moved.
Jim Whalen will make that motion. And so, oh, sorry, I'm trying to spread it around. I'm gonna let the two Jims do it. Jim Whalen moved it, Jim O'Shea seconds, all in favor. That's approved.
Thank you very
See you
much.
on the 16th.
Okay.
Thank you. And that's it for you.
Mhm.
All right.
Thank you very much,
Better
Council.
soon. We need.
What about the one? Why don't you-
Well, we're gonna do that at the end, because it's like a request. Okay, perfect. All right, so moving on, we're gonna go back to Peterborough County report. I don't have much of a report. We did receive an update on our asset management plan at the county level, and council knows we just went through that at the township level. We did get a staff update regarding physician recruitment. As you know, with passing of Lori Ritchie, county council decided to go with a consulting company headed up by George Smitherman, former minister with Provincially, right? Is it provincially or federally? I can't remember. Anyway, they will be coming, the actual consultants they will be coming, I think in the new year to speak to county council directly, but there is, they've got a doctor already that's coming or interested in coming to Peterborough County, and a couple of other things. They've been really sort of hitting the ground running, so we will get an actual update from them in the new year. We're still working on the budget. It is coming forward at tomorrow's county council meeting, possibly for approval, but we'll have to wait and see until tomorrow. So, but that's it for county. I don't really have anything else, Jim, that we can add.
So it was an unusual notice of motion, Asphodel Norwood brought
Oh, right.
a motion to support them with an application for a water system. We got 400 homes approved and they haven't got a water system.
And they're looking for, support for that. They've applied for it, but because the MTO is doing extensive construction on Highway 7 and they're ripping everything up, they want to get this done and get that infrastructure in at the same time, rather than have it done and then be ripping it up later or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's been a little bit of back and forth. There's been some talk with the MPPs and it was suggested that, county council put forward a resolution to support lower tiers when there's big applications like this coming forward, to say like, hey, this is a priority. This makes a lot of sense. Let's do it, right? Especially when the push is on for more homes, build them faster, right?
That's it.
So it's a good one. So it's an opportunity, as even for us in the future, any other municipality to, looking for that kind of, extra support to get the county on board to, specifically, send off that support to those upper levels of government. Anyway, that's it for the county agenda. If there's no questions or comments, motion, or you got a question?
I realize that you can't just get rid of entire departments, but what are the budgetary changes with the changes in recycling expected to be at the county, if that has been publicly discussed and is available?
We don't really know yet because they're still looking at the uploading of the waste pickup for 5 out of the 8 municipalities. So there's still that kind of going on, and the operation of the landfill as well, which is joint. So I don't really know much, but I mean, that will be something that will come out of all of this once these changes are sort of, figured out. So stay tuned. If there's nothing else, motion to receive the county report, please. Moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? that has been received. Crowe Valley, what's going on with the Crowe?
So,
Like, what's not going on, right?
as of November 29th, our GM search is over. We were able to sign a document actually in our historic local Apsley Inn and Motel to finalize everything. Thursday, we will have a media release prepared that I'll be able to give the actual specific details, but that is excellent news. We're still at a very low water level. We hit winter water levels weeks ago, and they seem to be stabilizing and not dipping much further, but it still is something that we need to be keeping an eye on. And even with all these changes, we're still expecting our budget to come in around 2%, and it should still be relatively stable. I'm going to have a full update from our regional sessions that took place yesterday at the next meeting. I was unable to attend them.
Okay.
But I was able to sort of slip in a question with someone that was able to be there. And it does appear right now the ministry controlled areas will remain ministry controlled areas. So that was a big concern of mine with our A, B, C structure and having C and A and B separate. It appears right now that should remain stable, and that will not represent a significant change. The 36-7 certainly feels solidified at this point. They're still talking about the final boundaries, but where we are, it's almost guaranteed that we'll be in the Eastern Lakes Regional Conservation Authority. And that would put us in with Durham, Prince Edward County, Quinte, and it's a pretty large area. They are very focused, and actually I think this is one of the good things that may come from this. There's always good and bad. A single digital permitting platform is something that they're heavily focused on, and I believe may streamline a sort of spider web of systems that people presently need to navigate. But unless there was something I missed at the regional session yesterday, as far as like local representation boards and how that's all going to look, that's still all up in the air, but is very much that they're looking for input from municipalities, conservation authorities.
Yeah, that's gonna be critical, right? You've got a whole bunch of watersheds now in one area, like, and like, look at the makeup of your current board, right?
Yeah.
Is there one person on there that's gonna be able to, you know, sort of handle that representation, right? That's gonna be a big thing.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Well, you did it with the police service.
we did it, and it's a challenge, but well, yeah, it was mandated, we had to do that, but I mean, as you know, at our level here in North Kawartha, our local police service board pushed back on that because of that local connection and content, right?
Yeah.
We're still getting the same police service, but it's that kind of, that oversight and that, as I said, that local connection that is lost, and sometimes bigger isn't always better, right? We know that, but anyway. We've got to make do and work with the changes that are being brought forward. So look forward to your next report.
Every one of these reports should come with actual information, and there shouldn't be any sort of non-report in the next few months from the Crowe.
Lots to tell us. Okay, perfect. Any questions or comments for Colin? If not, motion to receive the Crowe Valley report, moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Jim Whalen, all in favor. That has been received. Excuse me, adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting of council that was held on November 18th. If there are no errors or omissions, motion to adopt those minutes, please. Anyone? Moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Ruth Ann. All those in favor? Those minutes have been adopted. Consent agenda, requests to pull.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Business arising from previous minutes.
Okay.
What if it's a closed session thing that I want to find out something about? Where do I do that on the agenda here?
I don't know, business arising, we don't have business arising in the closed session or not. You may want to have a conversation with the clerk or the CAO offline. That's probably the best thing. Okay, all right, so consent agenda, there's number 5 and number 6, we have requests to pull out for possible consideration of support. Anybody else have anything that they want to pull? Okay, so well, let's deal with the first one. Number 5 is the town of Godrich. Ruthann, you wanted to speak to that?
Yeah, I just thought we should look at supporting that because they're talking about incinerating waste. And when we're looking now where we probably send about 25 cents or 25% to the states currently, this might help that. And obviously, you're not going to incinerate tomorrow. So
Yeah.
but I think we should be looking at it. Germany does it, Denmark does it, a lot of European countries.
They have been yelling for this for years.
Yeah, well, I mean, be consistent with the support we've given previously. We're
Yeah.
all on board with this, even at the county level too. We've been pushing, so.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Ruthann, seconded by Jim Whalen to support. All those in favor? That is supported. And number 6, along a similar vein about dealing with the recycling issue, and Township of Selwyn have put forward a motion. It was approved even at the county level when it comes to the stupid rule about eligible versus ineligible recycling materials. They're requesting that not-for-profits be included as eligible, things like the daycares and different other organizations,
Food
community
bank.
care, food banks, all of that stuff, right? Like, I mean, they're, what are they gonna do come the new year, right, for the recycling? So it's a little bit, it's not the whole thing. We're still working on trying to get all recycling eligible, because it should be. But at least this is a step in the right direction. So I'm hoping that council will consider supporting their resolution.
I do.
Okay, Jim Whalen makes that motion, Ruthann will second it. All those in favor? That has been supported as well. And then if there's nothing else, can I have a motion to receive the balance of the consent agenda items? Moved by Colin, seconded by Jim O'Shea. All those in favor? The consent items have been received. Okay, and it must be a building staff report coming up because not all of them is walking to the table here. Good morning, Matt. We have a license of occupation agreement. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Mayor and members of council. So before you have the report, there's a recommendation that council pass a bylaw at the end of the meeting to authorize the mayor and the clerk to enter into a license of occupation agreement as set out in Schedule A of the bylaw with Rachel and Craig Weimer to establish the terms under which the license would be given permission to repair/renovate, including replacement of the piers and deck on an existing cottage located on the shore road allowance, described as being part of the road allowance in front of lot 14, concession 11, geographic township as set out in the Schedule B and depicted in Schedule C of the bylaw. So a little bit of background. On the adjacent to the property located at 108 RJ Lucas Road, the Weimers own a cottage that's currently located on the shore road allowance. They're in the process of purchasing the shore road allowance. They've put an application in. It's currently underway. And they would like to proceed with the replacement of the piers under the cottage while that purchase goes through. So that's basically the background. There's the license of occupation would allow them to do that. Gives authorization from the township to make changes to the building that's located on the shore road allowance.
Yep.
Matt, do you know if the application to buy the allowance is a valid one? Like, is there anything against it at all?
No, there's no issues as far as I'm aware.
Straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward, yeah.
Okay. Any other?
Move the recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Ruthann. All those in favor? That's approved. Go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, and then we dealt with the planning request for council orientation. So now we have, and I see him, he's coming, Parks and Recreation, Depot Recycle. Oh, we're gonna talk trash again with Gary. Well, it's actually recycling.
You talk trash a lot.
I know. Well, there's a lot of trash to talk about. Good morning, Gary, and you're gonna give us an update on the recycling, or all the recycling stuff. I'll hand it to you. You go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council. Before you is a report, basically dealing with our current agreement with Circular Materials Ontario. So, as per the recommendation, the Township of North Kawartha amend bylaw 2023-0081 pertaining to the depot operations agreement 2024-00-111 between the Township of North Kawartha and Circular Materials Ontario for the collection, haulage, and processing of all two-stream blue box recycling materials from the Anstruther and Haltane transfer stations, also referred to as depots, to include change order number 1, dated November 21st, 2025, which amends the agreement 2024-00-111, effective January 1st, 2026, for a period of 3 additional one-year terms. So, what does this all mean? So currently, as you know, we're in the transition period for the Producer Responsibility Recycling Program, which ends December 31st of this year. As you know, part of that whole program was the non-eligible source material, which we have dealt with separately, but is also referred to in this agreement. So in order to move forward, on the good side, on a very positive note, CMO and the producers recognize the importance of both the Anstruther and the Haltane transfer stations. They realize these depots are integral to continue to collect blue box recycling from residents. I say that because there is municipalities that have lost that service in their depots. If a municipality gets curbside, which they feel is adequate to serve all their residents, then they will eliminate depot collection for recycling. So for us, we've got island properties, we have boat access only properties, and we also have properties on private roads that have the challenges of being serviced in the winter time. Therefore, again, I won't say that it wasn't without some effort, but through some meetings and through a lot of work that we provided CMO, they recognize that we have 1,832 properties that they recognize require depot service. So, can that number change? Yes, that number can change. They can, on an annual basis, they can get back to us and say, you know what, that road got paved. It gets serviced now better in the wintertime. I think it should be serviced all year round. Let's drop 50 people or residents off that. So that number can change. It can grow. It can go the other way as well. So that will be looked at from time to time. But understanding that we still require a depot service, we, of course, get a compensation for our duties to offer the service in our transfer stations. And if you'll notice in the analysis, there's a couple things noted in the change order that I pointed out in the analysis. So one of those is actually our compensation, which is on the last one, number 5. As I pointed out, on a positive note, Clause 9 of the change order refers to the township's compensation for depot operation costs. And based upon our number, our compensation for our operational costs is $4,452 monthly, effective January 1st. So really, we have no change. Most municipalities had a reduction in their depot operation costs because of our number. Our compensation for depot operation cost is actually, it goes up by $50. So that was a good note. On moving backwards on that analysis, on number 4, we carry some responsibilities pertaining to promotion and education. As you know, we're always constantly promoting and educating what people need to do to recycle. Unfortunately, they are reducing the compensation related, and this is right across the board when it comes to P&E. That's what we call it, promotion and education. And now they're using a figure multiplied the number of households that require depot service. So it's 35 cents per household times the number of households. For us, that comes to $53 a month. During transition, because they didn't know exactly how this would work, we had $353 a month. And we were able to use that to partner with other municipalities, which we did last year, and sent out a mail out nice and shiny that people could put on their fridge for recycling, assorted thing. But now we still do a lot of most of our promotion education now is all electronically. So, whether it be website, social media, we do handouts. This being said, under this new agreement, if SEMO comes to us and say, hey, we got this handout, we need you to put it out, we're still responsible to do that. Doesn't necessarily mean a mail out, because that's a large cost, but we would have staff hand it out in the transfer stations. So was this a bit of a, sour bone with me? It was, because, when you want to continue to provide a lot of P&E services in order that people know what to do and recycle, they've lowered the compensation when it comes to P&E. So although we are at the mercy of their promotions department, we will continue to do what we do when it comes to that. The biggest, one more thing before I get to the biggest. The other thing, all new contracts straight across Ontario, this isn't just for us, and I did look into this, is that all the new contracts are extended for three 1-year period terms. That gives SEMO the ability, and the township the ability to, renegotiate it or decide if they don't like something at the end of each year. But I think that's more so less to look at that number of households that require the depot service. So at the end of each year, that could be modified. But they are 3 1-year terms, which is automatic. If there is no changes, it's just an automatic renewal. Finally, the big thing, of course, as we all know, is the elimination of what they refer to as non-eligible source recycling, or what we commonly refer to as IC&I, which stands for Industrial, Commercial, and Institutional Source Recycling. This is noted in number 3. And again, this is going to be deleted. All reference to this is deleted entirely from the depot operations agreement. And that's what the change order, one of the big things in the change order refers to. So again, producers are no longer responsible for the collection of IC&I blue box recycling material either at the curbside, which is again nothing to do with this contract, or in the depots, which is what this contract deals with. Producers are only responsible for blue box recycling material from residential or eligible sources. So in summary, we've got a contract that Lan and I have both gone over. I have met with Circular Materials more than once, and it is, we did, I will say we had some wording changed in this. It didn't come to us exactly as it reads right now. We had some small changes made, and then we had some maybe more significant changes made in reference to number 4 in the P&E, because originally the P&E clauses just put us totally at the mercy of SEMO, where this now gives us a little bit more flexibility, specifically since the remuneration has drastically been reduced. So other than the elimination of the non-eligible source, which we have, as you know, as a township are making plans for, and which I do refer to here in this report. If you look at the, just before the financial implications here, as previously discussed at council, we estimated that an IC&I recycling collection will carry a township of expense of approximately $24,000. As there is no previous experience in this, we don't have specific weights specifically for IC&I, as we don't know how often businesses will use it. It is a bit of a guess, but I will say it's a bit of an educated guess. So again, we're looking at putting two 40-yard bins at each site. One will be certainly covered to protect the recycling. The other one can be an open bin. It's an $85 per ton for the IC&I recycling processing fee. And the estimated amount is based upon if each bin was transported, let's say, once a month. They are large bins. They will take a lot. If they're not transported at least once a month, then there may be a rental fee for the bin, which is about $100 a month, $125 a month. So the rental fee isn't huge, but at the same time, we suspect the bins will go out, at least once a month. Certainly in the summertime, that's for sure. So if you look at the financial implications in this, currently under the change order and the agreement, we'll receive compensation. And again, this isn't just free compensation. We're working for this money. I mean, we have duties and responsibilities under the agreement. Our compensation will be $50,000 annually. If we look at an IC&I cost of roughly $24,000 I use for the purposes of this report, we would end up on the net side of $30,000 annually. So again, we are recommending that we move forward with the change order. I'm not going to say we don't have any other choices. There's always choices, but moving it forward effectively now allows CMO to be in place for January 1st and ensures that we have no interruption, in our service beginning January 1st. That's
Okay.
it.
Thanks. Heck of an update. Any questions, comments from council on this at all? I mean, one way or another, we gotta deal with it, right? Still lobby and advocate for, all of it to be collected, but at least at this way, I mean, we're serving our community and, and meeting the needs as best that we can, given the circumstances. Jim?
Gary, if we approve this today, will there be a letter go out to all those people to tell them what their plan is here somehow? Because the businesses and the institutions won't know what to do with the recycling until they hear from you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So we do have we don't have a direct mail out planned, but we do have an electronic social media campaign plan. We know who our IC&I customers are. A lot of them have already reached out to me, to be honest, and this information will be parlayed to them prior to January 1st.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, and council members too, I'm sure you've been talking it up. I sure have.
Yeah.
with all kinds of different organizations and businesses, yes, so. But yeah, no, it's still gonna be a rude awakening come the new year. I know you're gonna hear it's gonna be all over again, right? People are gonna be like, what? So, but anyway, we're working through as best we can. Excellent report and recommendation.
Yeah, that's true, but at least now we have something to tell.
Exactly.
Before we had nothing to tell them.
No,
So we've got an answer for them, and it's a pretty nice answer, actually. Just have to go to the transfer station.
Yeah. It's kind of like going back in time, like we used to all do. For a lot of us. So no. I mean, we had to serve, like I said, serve our community in the best way, given the changes that have been imposed. So, would somebody please like to move this recommendation? Ruth Ann will make that motion and Jim O'Shea will second it. All those in favor? That recommendation is approved. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. I know it's been a lot of work, a lot of back and forth for you and for Alana and other folks as well, trying to get this all hammered out, but we really appreciate it and it's a good thing. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Council. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks. Okay, and with that, we are on to reports from boards and committees, library board minutes, the meeting that was held on October 28th. Can I have a motion to receive those minutes, please? Moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Colin. All those in favor? Pardon me, I gotta pay attention. Multitasking here. That has been received. Those minutes have been received. And okay, so now we're moving on to, we're looking good for time here, people. New business, unfinished business. We have a notice of motion from Colin with respect to cooperative procurement policies and You got a bunch of stuff for us, Colin, so I'm turning it over to you. Please go ahead.
Sure do. Sorry, I'm gonna send a request for screen sharing now.
Hi. Yep. Do you want to?
Yeah.
Do you, well, I was thinking, because you're not gonna be, we'll be done by about 10:30, right?
I would think.
I was thinking we'd be okay. If we start going pretty long, I will definitely call a break, but 10:30 is usually our time. I think we can get it done.
A question about close, so. Is
I-
that,
Well, but I mean, offline,
that's good, yeah.
that'll be separate from council.
You should be able to share now, Colin.
Let me take on that.
Perfect.
There we go. Perfect. I think we are set here.
Good.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor, for giving me this opportunity to speak today and for seconding this motion. I appreciate your support on this journey. For those able to remain conscious through a 15-minute tour of trade policy, I will very quickly, in less than 5 minutes, walk through direct source material, providing clarity and credibility to some outlandish sounding claims. Procurement in Canada is complicated. The amount of work needed to pull this all together would be inappropriate for a staff member to apply to a single procurement avenue, given the smaller size of our municipal governments and agencies. This presentation is not a criticism of the staff at North Kawartha that work very hard to serve the public. I see them going above and beyond their contractual duties here regularly to make things work for our residents. Let's start with the oldest and sometimes simplest form of procurement for North Kawartha, a town-to-vendor transaction. North Kawartha can purchase an item from a vendor. Depending on the cost of the item, local procurement policy, Ontario-Quebec Trade and Cooperation Agreement, Canadian Free Trade Agreement, and other obligations may exist. Governments then identified a shared need for certain items. In order to leverage their combined purchasing power, they created group purchasing organizations. Traditionally, a group purchase would involve the buying group itself purchasing items they know to be trade compliant on behalf of their members. This was and is a great tool for governments to use. We use it for gravel with Peterborough County. I worry many governments and agencies are mistaking the canoe sourcewell process as this tool. Now let's take a look at the actual structure of the procurement process used by North Kawartha and canoes over 6,000 members, with annual sales growth doubling and a total spend of more than $780 million in 2024. I will call it the discount club system. For approximately 16.5% of contracts made available for members through Canoe, a competition is held, the discounts made available for members are contracted, and the purchaser then uses that contract to approach the vendor for an item, shifting responsibility as the procuring party from the group purchasing organization to the town. Canoe never handles the product, but it receives money from the vendor. About 83.5% of the contracts available for Canoe members take a longer journey. An American RFP is issued and discounts are obligated by contract. Canoe then has an opportunity to offer that contract to members if it can meet member needs. Given the contracts available for Canoe members are selected from a Sourcewell hosted competition, if they modified the contract, Canoe, in my mind, is technically running a closed competition based on an open competition run in the US. If this helps, if staff buy a cake without going to public tender, this is a perfectly reasonable use of a closed competition. It is fair to discriminate and not assume that every grocery store would be given opportunity. Legal language indicates Sourcewell has final deciding authority on contracts offered, closing the competition for Canoe, who can only offer Sourcewell signed contracts on Sourcewell RFPs, as best as I can tell. Most importantly, and we will return here, the town is the procuring entity, and the fee payment is between the vendor and the purchasing group. Now, as quickly as possible, we will look at North Forth's trade obligations and where I am concerned ethical and legal issues may arise with unconsidered group purchasing. Unfortunately, I think we have been unintentionally exploiting a loophole in the CFTA legalizing geographic non-discrimination and unequal access for Canadian suppliers. Municipal spending is so far removed from the federal government that this has escaped detection for nearly a decade. We can skip by the World Trade Organization as it applies only to larger cities in Ontario, and this is going to be long enough. Canada did not sign the government procurement portion of CUSMA, leading to the WTO enforcing US-Canada government trade. Moving to the bottom, locally, we must ensure our procurement bylaw includes language protecting us in group purchases. Another municipality has included group procurement language indicating that the procurement processes and policies of the purchasing entity would be used. I believe the structure of discount clubs shifts that back to purchasing government's policies. If not done carefully, we are required to follow our purchasing processes like RFPs and RFQs on top of the trade obligations created upstream. If Sourcewell contracts are indeed modified by Canoe to Canadianize them, they may fail our procurement policy regardless of cost. The Municipal Act is very broad when it comes to procurement. Our main obligation is to have a procurement bylaw, not a CFTA compliant one, even though we are always party to it. Other provinces legislate that CFTA thresholds are included in procurement policies, potentially avoiding some non-compliant purchases. It appears towns and agencies may be satisfying provincial law, bypassing federal trade law, and escaping unscathed as the province is responsible for enforcing their laws to municipalities, and no one is incentivized to look closely at this. I say maybe satisfying provincial law. Are we wandering into a gray area with bonusing? Per a Mississauga staff report, historically Section 106 has been interpreted as conferring an obvious advantage or undue benefit to private parties within the commercial marketplace. By not hosting competition, are we limiting our vendor supply, advantaging those with prearranged discounts with Canoe? Are we advantaging Canoe by forcing all successful vendors to pay administrative fees to them? This is another example of a hidden closed competition. Additionally, I am also concerned the existing contract language from the Provincial Procurement Directive of March 2025 regarding US spending leaves the policy open to circumvention with non-compliant goods. We will come back to that later. This potentially demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of how municipalities spend by those who enforce them. We should still be responsible for ensuring those contracts meet fair, open competition standards to meet our trade obligations for our purchase. I'll try to stick to real-world examples, some hypothetical but understandable, some with evidence. Dumbbells and weights are shockingly expensive. Let's imagine our order for the NKCC gym met OQ, CTA, and CFTA thresholds, numbers seen in communities like Chilliwack. Contracts from Sourcewell and Canoe can run 4 years from RFP closing, and extensions are available. If we are only considering contracts for weights from before we posted our notice of intent to use Canoe, how is a local North Forth interested vendor supposed to apply unless they have a friend with a DeLorean? If we are only considering contracts that are 3 or 4 or more years old, how can a Canadian or local company that started making these goods in that time period be fairly included? If we are using contracts that include rubber flooring, weight machines, treadmills, ellipticals, benches, and more, how can we ensure smaller vendors that are able to meet our requirements have not been excluded from our weight purchasing process? If we are using quotes posted on every provincial RFP system except for Quebec, even if posted on the national system, are we being fair? The membership base's exclusion of Quebec members raises serious concerns for me with RFP scoring. If that scoring is intended to meet member needs, how is Canoe ensuring that inventory, distribution, and servicing focused inside of Quebec is not disadvantaged? Add on the language barrier for RFPs, even if not required by the OQTCA, and I believe there are many opportunities for Quebec suppliers to argue they experience an overall competitive disadvantage. If towns and cities shift towards a US dominant system in Sourcewell for fire trucks, literally who is left to champion that industry at home and promote new growth? I like the idea of a consistent supply of fire trucks for Canada myself. We are living in a half-decade-long supply chain interruption, voicing frustrations about it, and having a negative influence on it at the same time. I have seen multi-million-dollar deals go for fire apparatus that seem to go without local tender. While doing my research, I found one community that for a period was using Canoe in the way it should be, in my mind. Back in 2023, Pickering used Canoe to streamline the purchase of 2 sidewalk plows. They hosted a secondary local competition. They would have been able to use the language from Canoe's original trade-compliant RFP, saving hours of time, narrow the scope if necessary, and provide opportunity for newer and smaller vendors to apply. Lo and behold, a new contract with a local supplier was awarded. $400,000 pre-tax direct to a local supplier and servicer, saving staff time, finding good value products, strengthening local businesses, and applying fair competition. That's a big win. The most terrifying realization I had through all this process is that this is happening and this is actually all legal. We are accidentally using an internal trade document to legalize unequal access for Canadian suppliers on items of national priority. Going back a slide, if we replace Canoe with Sourcewell, this would violate 5031, which prohibits a procuring party from redirecting funds to entities and purchasing groups not party of the CFTA. A Minnesota agency is not. By rerouting these arrows, so the town is the procuring party and the vendor pays the purchasing group, we are bypassing a document intended to protect us. Sourcewell is able to meet the obligations of the CFTA with public postings, giving us further protection, but this does not eliminate the problem. Larger American corporations capable of international distribution dominate Canadian and regional suppliers. RFPs are designed to meet member needs efficiently, and Canoe's 6,000 members are included with Sourcewell's 44,000. This also legalizes the consideration of Buy USA standards and other American protectionist policy in Canadian government trade. Ottawa, we have a problem. I'll now briefly touch on what I think should be our final major consideration, the ethics of it all. Would the state of Minnesota be offering their employees for North Kawartha meetings out of the spirit of goodwill, or are we helping generate revenue and offset administrative expenses? What specific trade information can they offer? When would we need to move into closed session, shielding the procurement process from the public? Is sufficient transparency created by this procurement structure? Less concerning, but similar considerations should be made of Canoe when protecting the interests of Ontario and our region. Are we influencing domestic supply chain resiliency for items we need to operate? It may have almost been Sourcewell EV chargers for us, but this includes Sourcewell body armor, bomb suits, and items of military relevance in a time when our federal government is doing everything they can to strengthen domestic production. EV chargers are being subsidized for rapid expansion. Should we use a US-held competition with potentially US-centric results for purchasing and servicing those chargers? Once introduced to the Sourcewell system via Canadian posting, are we promoting Canadian companies' investment in the US for manufacturing so they can meet Buy USA standards, increase RFP scores, and access more member funds? Is it right that we are using a system where Canadian businesses can sell Canadian-made products and services to Canadian governments and money leaves the country? With discount newsletters, structured discount schedules, and pre-written justifications, are governments allowing vendors to influence public budgets? A neighboring town's potential combined 2025 and 26 bunker gear purchase being considered through Sourcewell today may be an example of this. Advancing purchases by a year to hit a new discount tier. I'm not accusing our neighbors of making a bad decision. I have no idea what their financial position or equipment supply is. It's just a very real world example of what I'm talking about. Should we allow broad scope RFPs to impact our small businesses' growth potential? Is it right to use a system sending our administrative work to Minnesota when our provincial and federal governments are reducing administrative jobs at home? should we favor US production and discriminate against Canadian suppliers with their own tax dollars? My answer is no. I have prepared a motion to send off that highlights many of my concerns, raises them to those in government that have an ability to address them. And if council shares these feelings, I hope they will join me. But very quickly, I'll run through the surprisingly simple source material needed to verify all of this. Perfect. Actually, just because I was so impressed with how this was done, this isn't even totally necessary, but Pickering. So on December 18th, 2022, a second stage quotation through Canoe was advertised on the city's bids and tenders portal. One company responded, and the quotation was from York Region Equipment. Go up, York Region Equipment, $407,000, successful contract. Now, when I talk about the Ontario policy being able to be overridden with our contracts, so a new procurement has not yet been posted on an electronic tendering system. So if it has been posted on an electronic tendering system via Canoe or Sourcewell, this policy no longer applies and people would be able to purchase US goods that this policy intends to avoid. To establish my arrows, we'll look at the Zamboni Sourcewell contract and talk about it kicking the Canadian pants that we have to use an American contract for Zambonis. So the vendor will pay an administrative fee to Sourcewell, establishing that red arrow. Vendor may not charge participating entities more than the contracted price to offset the administrative fee, which establishes that it's a direct transaction between the municipality and the vendor, and we are the procuring party. Now we'll go to CFTA. 504.8 is the one that we need to be worried about. Subject to Article 5031, which we will go up to, when a procuring entity procuring through a buying group has little, might resume boxes in the way, little or no control over the procurement process, it is not required to ensure that the procurement is consistent with this chapter. So this allows the bypass of Canadian fair competition. So now we go up to 5031. A procuring entity, which we have established as us, shall not prepare, design, or otherwise structure a procurement, select evaluation method, or divide procurement requirements in order to avoid the obligations of this agreement. This includes actions such as dividing required quantities of the goods or services to be procured, or diverting funds to entities not covered by this chapter, or to buying groups in a manner designed to avoid the obligations of this chapter. So we are the procuring entity, and the vendor is the one diverting funds to entities not covered by this chapter. They also are able to meet the obligations of this chapter by posting on Ontario and Canadian RFP portals. So this is MERX, Ontario's RFP portal. These are the sort of things we may potentially be impacting supply chain resiliency on. Airside ground support equipment. Anyone that's been through Pearson recently knows we want that. IT managed workforce, but the closed solicitations will go through one page, and it is a lot more concerning. Fleet leasing, virtual physical health products, public safety training, used fire apparatus, laboratory and toxicology testing, boats and watercraft, public utility equipment, so cherry pickers and the items that we need to keep our utilities going, medical supply solutions, firefighting apparatus and fire service vehicles, automobiles, it's a particularly hot button issue right now, underground infrastructure, and then tires, roadway maintenance equipment. But I'll jump back up to firefighting because I've talked about that today. This is a Sourcewell RFP. They are advertising all across Canada for a 4-year contract, confirming that bid. And let's take a look at what a Canadian company potentially selling to North Kawartha has to go through in order to meet the RFP and contract standards. So I'm not saying it's impossible for Canadian companies to get Sourcewell contracts. It's difficult. This is a fire engine company from St. George, Quebec, Canada, signed with Sourcewell. So pricing, one, I find it's a little unusual that I've seen a whole whack of these where Canadian towns are buying Canadian products and paying in USD, which is one of the first things that sort of set me off here. But let's look at what we are exposing them to. So first off, when I say Canadian products, Canadian government's money out of the country, administrative fee, the supplier pays the administrative fee to Sourcewell. Audit. So they now need to have the accounting ability to be able to do an American audit. So that increases resources required within. What else? Insurance. So in order for a Canadian business to sell a Canadian government a fire truck, they must have American workers' compensation, employers and liability insurance, American commercial general liability insurance, American commercial automobile liability insurance, American umbrella insurance, American network security and privacy liability insurance. Basically turning them into a fully Americanized company at that point, and gives them great reason to be investing in the States after they've gone through all this process to meet a standard posted on a Canadian website. It's also important to remember that Canoe's or Sourcewell's members include federal, state, province, municipal government entities. There's different rules for the federal government spending in the United States, and we are tying ourselves into this. So let's see what considerations a Canadian company may need to make. So this section is for non-federal agencies that are using federal money, showing how federal money needs to be spent, because if they're receiving federal money, they need to follow their standards. So they need to be able to meet American equal employment opportunity, Davis-Bacon, which is labor, more American labor, the American Clean Air Act in order to do well on RFPs. But the absolute pinnacle of this, to me, this all legalizes the Buy American Provisions compliance within Canadian government purchasing. Now consider the size of the American federal government and all the projects that they're spending on, and think about how that influences the RFP scoring versus a group of 6,000 municipalities up in Canada. And the last one, and I know people probably think I'm fixated on this, these are important items. This is body armor. This is something we absolutely need to have in a strong domestic supply line for. 2 options are offered. I will say one is Canadian. On an older Sourcewell contract, they did well. That has already been extended. So we are coming up to 5 years that there's been one Canadian option. And as of 19th of February, 2026, we will be down to one American option for governments and agencies to use for all of these items through Sourcewell. These are items that, again, we need to ensure we are able to supply locally. And the net spending of municipalities and agencies is in the billions. So while this doesn't feel like it's something that is a huge deal for us, and I appreciate people giving me half an hour to talk about something that's not a huge deal for us, it still is important for us. And I do think this is a huge deal overall. So thank you. And if anyone has questions, I am more than happy to answer them at this point.
Well, all right. Well, we are one of 6,000, right? So that's where the bigness comes in, right? So, okay, and you do have the notice of motion here. We don't need to read it out because it's there, and I know people have read it. So Jim's going to start us off.
Well, just, this and the PowerPoint, where does it fit in? Is that just for us? This isn't going any further.
This was all the background for, pardon me.
I know it's the
Yeah.
background, but I'm asking where it goes now.
Public record, so it depends.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not going out with any of the other stuff. Okay, and where's the notice of motion? I haven't got it.
It's on the agenda.
So notice of motion.
No, but it's on the agenda because I opened it
The
up.
first one that came out didn't have it on it.
Oh, that's why you're.
Was it amended?
Yeah, so it's there.
Okay.
Do you want a minute and Ruth Ann can ask a
No,
question?
Ruth Ann can go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
I think, it's not simple, but I just wondered if you had any opportunity to look at the new Buy Ontario / Canada legislation and how that will affect procurement with potentially.
So I would say that they should probably have more consideration of group purchasing and based on the actual modern group purchasing structures that are in existence today. I think it's a great policy and a great idea, but it's a very gray area as is based on what I've read. Whether it would still be able to be used based on the Municipal Act allowing it. It would be something for them to consider.
And as of March 4th this year, we're not supposed to be using any US business for procurement. But Sourcewell is clearly US, right?
Okay.
And we're just doing it because we're going through Canute to satisfy from March to now.
So municipalities that don't spend or don't receive more than $10 million a year from the government aren't actually covered by that policy. So we don't have to worry about that locally.
Okay.
That one's only for the broader public sector.
Okay.
I feel bad that I closed it now, but it does allow it to use existing contracts to circumvent that policy.
I don't like that word, but yeah. Okay. All right.
Bypass.
That sounds better,
Yeah.
but it's still the same. I'm a couple weeks behind you, so I just gotta say that. My head is like.
Exactly. So, Jim, did you have?
Yeah, I have a few little things there.
Okay.
First of all, we run this by our legal department because could be construed as slightly liable. Because you're telling us that a multi-million-dollar company is subject to and I notice in here you've got a lot of places where it may weaken domestic supply, it may represent breaches, it may circumvent blah 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 blah. But that's good to protect us maybe if we have a legal thing, but it makes it wishy-washy. Is it right or is it wrong? The other but I really have a problem with the way it's worded. We shouldn't be using this, and all of Canada shouldn't be using this, and we've got to get out of this, and blah 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 blah. And these big companies have a platoon of lawyers just sitting waiting for stuff like this to come through, and I'm not signing it. Not as it is anyway, not without legal opinion first. And secondly, I'd like to, see what's coming from the Ontario and federal government too. They're bringing forward a thing on Ontario purchases or Canadian purchases. So, sorry, Colin, I know you've done a ton of work here. It's unbelievable, but, I can't endorse it.
Do you want to respond?
No, he's allowed to not endorse it, but I would suggest trying to actually have an argument where you think the liability is held if we're gonna be sending it to a legal department.
That's up to you. That's up to council actually, because if this goes through, it's not just you and Carolyn, it's all of council is saying, you know, this is the truth, that everything in here is 100% accurate and, can't be, disputed.
Elena, I wonder, can you maybe respond to, I mean, there's nothing saying that we couldn't have this sent to our solicitor. I don't know whether or not our municipal solicitor would be able to provide an opinion on this, or if we need to
I'm not sure either, Carol.
get another legal thing, but Atlanta, what, like, just maybe if you want to comment on that.
I would think, if it's council's desire to have the motion passed through our municipal solicitor, we certainly could send it. I do think that, there's some valid information that's been presented. The Buy Ontario Act is, of course, very recent and new. And while it's still on the topic of procurement, it's not necessarily the same as what's before council today. So municipally, we certainly will be looking at any changes the government's making with that bill and incorporating them into our procurement policy. It hasn't passed as yet, but there are many sessions being held on procurement, so that will maybe delay the update of our procurement policy. But certainly if it's council's desire, we could send it to the solicitor.
And the other thing
Yep.
I would highlight, as
Yep.
far as the actual accusations that I'm making, they're not really against Sourcewell, they're against our internal policy documents. I'm not attacking any individual vendor, it's pointing out structural deficiencies within the documents. So the federal government might be able to get mad at me, and I don't mind that, but I don't think we have a terrible amount of liability. If it's the wish of council to filter it through, John, I would just hope that it can be done in a reasonable period of time.
If I may, I think, I don't think it's a bad thing to do that. But I would certainly reach out to our solicitor. As I said, I'm not too sure. We can see what he says, but whether it should go through him or if he would have a recommendation as to another type of a lawyer, right? But a couple of things that I wanted to ask, because in the wording in your motion, and I hear what Jim's saying too. I mean, I recognize like what you have brought forward here is something that, you kind of like, because you've asked questions about this for a while now, right? When it comes to our contracts and with Canoe and stuff like that. And it is very detailed and very complicated, and it's quite the rabbit hole. I think there's something here, and I think that it warrants further investigation, and it warrants more than just North Kawartha looking at it, right? It warrants more resources than what we can throw at it as, members of a council, municipal council. One of the things, and there's a couple of words like within the motion that I was gonna suggest that maybe be changed, like you spoke to it when you made your presentation, but you talked about the military relevance thing. I thought like that shouldn't be in there because we got nothing to do with military purchasing or whatever, and a few other word changes or whatever, but I do, as the seconder for this motion, I do have a comfort level with having it vetted through a legal perspective before we do anything further with it. Like, because I want to make sure that we're not, putting ourselves in a vulnerable situation, but at the same time, like I said, I think it also warrants further investigation and further scrutiny. And I see all of the folks that you copied on this that it should go to. And that's absolutely the folks that it should go to, right? They need to look at it too. They need to, and it may be something like you said, like you've uncovered something where people are like, holy smokes, Like I had no idea what was going on here, right? And we're in a change, sorry, I was just gonna say, but we are in a changing time, right, of how we do business. We have been so integrated for so long, and the stuff that's happening south of the border is upending everything, and it's not something that we can snap our fingers and make these changes, you know, on a dime. But clearly, like the Prime Minister says, like, we have to figure out a new way of being and trading and cooperating and working with our international neighbors and partners. And this may be a part of it. So Jim's got a question, I'll go back to you, Colin.
Actually, I don't have a question, I've got a comment.
Sure.
I agree with Jim to start with. I've read this thing through 3 or 4 times now.
We all have.
And
Not as much as
my comfort level never rose from the beginning, the first time reading it to the last time. And unfortunately, personal comments are made throughout the document that made me uncomfortable. Simply contracts fail, it all fails, and things like that throughout.
You're looking at an old version.
Hmm?
You're looking at an old version.
I'm looking at,
An old version.
oh, this is when you sent me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Recently. Anyway. When I look at this, I was thinking to myself, if this went to a court, would it pass? My answer was always no. However, I do believe that we do have to purchase items from the United States, even though we don't want to. For instance, fire trucks, road plows, etc. The big items that we just can't get in Canada. So I don't download this totally and say absolutely not. But my comfort level is no, I can't vote on this right now with the way it's stated.
Okay.
And if Colin, you have made up a new copy, I'd like to see that as well. This is the new copy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I read along with it. But
It's on the agenda too for today. It's linked on the
Yeah.
agenda, the most updated version. Okay.
so, yeah, I just couldn't get comfortable with it.
Okay.
However, the amount of work that went into it was very, very obvious.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever pursued an issue in this manner. In the 11 years I've been on council, is just, maybe it's me, but I
me
think it's
too.
also Jim.
Yeah, before it's partially you.
Colin and then Alana.
So actually, I think there's a good opportunity, and considering I'm the one really focused on this, if this is something that I see as realistic, I hope that other people do too. If we defer this, all the information that I have is still on the public record,
Yeah,
available out there.
Yeah.
Defer this until the 16th. At that point, somebody else's lawyer may have gone through, done all this work. We have
You're
them.
hoping for the great one.
We have the media here already, so it doesn't take many questions to confirm what I'm actually saying. So if it hasn't gone anywhere in those 2 weeks, at that point on the 16th, we'd be able to say, okay, send this off to the lawyer. But I don't think we need to send it to the lawyer right away, but that also doesn't mean we need to approve the motion in this meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Alana and then Jim.
The other thing that I just wanted to point out, going back to the legal opinion, is that part of this motion is to update the township's procurement policy to incorporate local priorities and regulate group procurement purchases. So when we're working on the procurement bylaw, we always do pass it by our solicitor. So I wouldn't necessarily want to be updating our procurement policy, so the wording here may need to be looked at. I mean, sending this on to everyone and pointing these things out. And we could look at the clauses we have for the group purchasing. We've only recently started to use Canoe, so
I know.
we certainly have other methods of procuring in the meantime until council makes a decision on a motion. But those couple of points would concern me without going through the lawyer, that we're not gonna update policy until it's reviewed.
Well, part of the issue, if I just may too, is in thinking about this, and I've spoke to you, Colin, about it as well too, is making sure, like, I mean, we're looking at this and recognizing that there's some challenges and some things here that just don't quite sit right. But at the same time, we have an obligation and a responsibility to purchase the goods and services that we need to serve our residents and our community. I don't want to be, I don't want to necessarily disadvantage, our staff from, making the required purchases. And we know they take a long time for some of these now too, right? So we need to figure out a way forward with this that, because we have multiple obligations. We have obligations for our community, but we have obligations to make sure that we're complying and supporting local and all those things we talk about, and buying Canadian and everything else, and trying to be as strong and secure as we can domestically as well, right? And if we can, enhance that or work towards supporting that, then, I mean, that's a good thing. But I do think, yes, you say we put it out to the world, and who knows what kind of feedback we might get over the next 2 weeks, but I would still want our solicitor or, or somebody, to advocate on our behalf for North Coworth, to make sure that we're putting the best thing forward, the best motion forward. So Jim?
That's my point. John probably won't do it.
I don't know if he will, I don't know.
John will
He's a
probably
municipal
pass it
lawyer.
on to another lawyer who deals in this all the time, because and I'm not saying he will, but there's a big difference between our procurement policy and what's written here. I mean, there's a lot of difference convincing us about a procurement policy and writing to them.
Okay.
Writing to the prime minister and telling him he's got to do it. So, and I noticed you made him last on the list too.
Save the best for last, yeah.
That was intentional, I don't know, but anyway, I'll put forward a motion if you want it.
Okay,
But,
let's hang on one
wait
second.
until you get all your ducks in order.
Well, just,
So, is there one,
Go ahead,
one
yep.
more thing?
Yeah.
Judy, have we ever had any problem with procurement through Canoe?
Well.
I don't
loaded
mean to put you on the
question.
spot.
It is a loaded question. Problem as far as dealing with them or anything, no. It's I think. What Colin is showing, sorry, council. He's done a deep dive, and that's where the issues are coming. So we haven't had direct issues with them, but.
Okay, thanks.
yeah, and then I'll go to Luana. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the wood chipper below CFTA standards, but I do believe we may have violated OQTCA with it. And then and we also, no, we didn't violate our trade policy with that one because we had the emergencies set within and we're sort of able to determine that one. But the Sourcewell EV chargers, if this loophole didn't exist, would have been a CFTA violation, but also a violation of our procurement policy. And just to I agree that this whole thing is ridiculous. Like I'm not suggesting that this is a good system, but like one exposure that I think we potentially would have.
Oh my God, it's going to the whiteboard.
I know. So let's just say we had an item that was $50,000. And through COVID contracts and everything, prices just went up. So we had to accept a price modification for $60,000. That actually doesn't meet our procurement policy as it stands. So we wouldn't be able to accept this $60,000 one. So technically, it's actually a new procurement, and we are sole sourcing from the one person that we had the existing contract with before. That's how it works locally. But then if we added two in front of these, and our contract went from 250,000 to 260,000, but there was a bid for 258,000. The person that bid 258,000 is able to come at the municipality saying that we changed the contract that would have materially changed the competition, because they would have had the low price originally, but we are now accepting a higher price, making it a CFTA violation if it gets above thresholds. Like this is nuts. I'm not saying this is okay, and I'm not saying people are not intelligent for not knowing all this. This is not appropriate for towns with zero dedicated procurement staff. Our finance department's tremendously busy doing lots of other things and trying to support good purchases. But it's insane for somebody to try to expect a small town smaller than us to be able to navigate this whole system.
Okay, Alana, sorry, you had your hand up before.
So I just want to go back to the procurement policy. Because we are gonna need to look at the procurement policy
Absolutely.
as a whole. We've known since COVID, we've changed, there've been some minor amendments to the policy, and we've been looking to update the policy. New legislation keeps coming, we keep seeming to bump that as well. But it's also a combination of, I guess, ethics and political will as well. So to be considered when we start to look at the procurement policy, it's not that we necessarily, right now, the prime directive of that policy is to get the best price through a transparent process. But if that changes to be, pro-Canadian, then there is going to be a cost implication to that, because sometimes the Canadian version may be 100,000 more. So that's where staff are going to need, very clear direction from council in crafting that procurement policy.
But that's not just even for our township, that is what all municipalities are grappling with. And we've talked about it before. We don't want to buy that from the United States, but it's double or triple the cost, and we're going to ship over plow trucks from Europe. I don't know. I'm just using that as an example, but those are the realities that we have to confront. And like I said, the counties are going through, they're updating their procurement policy as well, right? Like this is something I think that needs to be on, a lot of folks' radar. And even more so now, now that it's out there. But definitely. And it's not like we were in Colin, I understand what you're saying, and I know you're not saying that it was intentional. We didn't create this and we didn't start this, but now we have seen and we can't unsee it, right? So we need to figure out a way to move forward and deal with it.
And the other opportunity here is it may not be like another person's lawyer, but it's pretty easy for somebody, whether it's media or somebody that's seen this, to go ask their MPP, is he right?
Yeah.
And at that point, you start to get covered. So I don't think we need to send this off and incur expenses on it right away. And considering the amount of time that I've put into this, if I'm feeling that way, I hope that we can all agree there.
Yeah, but that being said, Alana did raise the point that we are already, updating our procurement bylaw. This is, going to have an impact on that. And our lawyer is already involved with looking at that update. So I don't see why we wouldn't share it. Anyway, Jim says he has a motion that he wants to make on this. So if we're all done talking about it.
I would just like to ask you to send me all your source materials, so that I can take another look.
Yeah, all the windows you have, we would
Please.
share that with all of council too, so we can all kind of,
Thank you.
because every time I look at it, I find it, and I don't think I'm a stupid person, but there's a lot going on here and we haven't looked at it as extensively as you have,
Yeah.
right? But there's something there, right? So.
As much as I admire all the work you put into it, I would make a motion that this be deferred, just be sent to our solicitor for his recommendations.
Okay, for review. Okay, is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Ruth Ann. Okay, all those in favor? It's going off to review. but it is still out there. It's all right. Thank you very much, Colin. And we're gonna be back on this, discussing it more. Let's see where it goes. Okay. Now we're on to, I know, Connie, I said I was gonna keep an eye on the time, but we've blown past it, but we're almost done. We're not breaking now for 5 minutes. So correspondence for action or discussion. We have Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board. There's a recommendation that Connie, you brought forward. I'm gonna read it out. You gotta wait, Jim, sorry. Or you can read it if you want.
No, I don't want to read it.
Okay, I'll read it.
Move the recommendation.
Okay, but we need to know what the recommendation is, because people online are gonna be going, what's the recommendation? I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so the Council of the Township of North Kawartha received report, CASC 2025-1 dated November 17th, 2025, along with resolution 92-2025 passed by the Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board at the November 17th, 2025 meeting. And further, that the Council of the Township of North Kawartha ratified the appointment of Sandra Vaughn, Dave Taillefer, and Sarah Frank as members of the board for the remainder of the 2022-2026 term. And further, that a copy of this motion be sent to the Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board no later than January 22nd, 2026. That's your motion, Jim. Oh, now he doesn't want to move it.
I'll move the motion.
Jim and Ruth Ann's gonna second the motion. All those in favor? Thank you. I just for council's information, I was part of the committee selection process. Amazing applications. It was unbelievable how the quality of folks. And this is only, it's a short term. It's only for the year, like, because the term of this OPP board runs out with the term of council and then another process again. But like I can't say enough. We got 3 great people that we're appointing, but there were lots to choose one. It was tough going through it. But anyway, it was well done. Okay, so the last item on is we have a request from Rick Wanna, well, no, pardon me, it's a motion from a committee of adjustment earlier this morning for council to consider waiving some or all of the fees with respect to the minor variance that was brought forward then. The agent is Rick Wanna, who made that request. So it's for council to decide whether or not we want to consider waiving of those fees. So who wants to go? Anyone? Jim.
Connie, we've waived two of them now at 50%.
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead, Connie. Yep.
So when the zoning bylaw came forward for adoption, bylaw 2024-0043, which is the one that was being looked at for the committee of adjustment meeting this morning. At that time, it was back in September of 2024. Council did authorize a refund of 50% for that zone amendment. And there was 2 applications at that time that came forward. Mr. Wanna was the agent, and each of them had a refund basically of 50% of the zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay.
So council did give that consideration at the time.
Okay.
By the way, I'm not in favor of lowering the fee on this one. We didn't make the mistake. The mistake came from his people with the wrong measurements on it.
On the site plan?
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to put forward a motion that we don't waive the
That
fees?
we deny the request for a rebate on the
The minors.
It was a minor variance.
Fees, yeah. Okay, is there a seconder for that? Colin will second that.
I can just, so I could comment on it. If we hadn't given 50% to both of them beforehand, I would easily have made a different decision. But this has just been a mess of a process. There's shared responsibility, and we have shared that responsibility by waiving half of 2 of our applications.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. There is a motion on the floor then, duly, oh, pardon me?
It wasn't council or staff who made the mistake.
We still don't have one that says 17 meters.
Well, today, yeah, we did.
Yeah, well, today is the first
Yeah.
time. She said that
Yeah.
they don't have anything in file that says 17 meet.
So it wasn't a staff problem, it was an owner problem.
So,
We don't know.
so,
I don't know, but if he, as Colin says, if she hadn't, if we hadn't given 50% on both these before, I think I would have given the 50% today, but not in that case. He's only paid for one variance. Because he got 50% off,
Well,
we got.
but it was zone amendments, they're different.
Or whatever they.
Either
were.
way, either way.
You know, he's only paid for one zone amendment.
Okay. So there's a motion on the floor, duly seconded to not waive the fee request, okay? All those in favor of the motion? Okay, so that request has been denied, so we have our Grinch hats on, I know Rick is watching us, sorry. But that's the decision of council, so we are gonna move on now to the bylaws. Connie, would you please read those for us?
Madam Mayor. Bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter into a license of occupation agreement with Rachel and Craig Weimer to establish the terms under which the licensee would be given permission to repair, renovate, including replacement of piers and deck on the existing cottage located on the original shoreline road allowance. The next bylaw is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to approve the change order number 1 pertaining to the depot operations agreement 2024-01-111 between the township and Circular Materials Ontario. And further, that bylaw 2023-0080 being a bylaw to provide for all collection, haulage, and processing of all two-stream blue box recycling materials from the Anstruther and Haltane transfer stations be amended to include the changes to the depot operations agreement with items in change order number 1. Those are the 2 bylaws before council.
All right, can I have a motion to approve those bylaws, please? Moved by Ruth Ann, seconded by Jim O'Shea. All those in favor? Those are approved. Motion to confirm the proceedings of today's meeting, moved by Jim O'Shea, seconded by Jim Whalen. All those in favor? We are confirmed. Motion to adjourn, council. Moved by Colin, seconded by Jim O'Shea. Thanks, everyone.